Do you ever wonder if it's really possible to design a way of living that feels more authentic and more like you, that allows space for the things that truly matter and where the list still gets done? Join me today as we take a journey into how this can be possible and what this can look and feel like. Let this conversation stir your thinking about where you can make simple shifts in your mindset and approach to create what Ashley refers to as your rich, fulfilling life. Meet Ashley. She's a small business mentor and coach, helping service-based business owners simplify and streamline to create a business that fuels the life they desire. She's also the host of the Better Than Big podcast, which I love. And Ashley runs a six-figure business in 25 to 30 hours a week, leaving plenty of time to enjoy the good stuff like trail runs and good books and adventures with her family. And just know, whether you have a business of your own or you're looking to create more freedom and space in your life to increase fulfillment, you're going to love this conversation. Something I really respect about Ashley is the way she walks her talk. And if you're like me and get ideas while you're listening to podcasts, grab a pen and paper, because I think you're going to find some gems in this one. Sit back and enjoy. I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Hey, Ashley, I'm so excited that you're here today, and I know we're going to dive into all kinds of juicy stuff.
I'm really excited to be here for our conversation.
You're somebody who, right after I met you, I just could sense and feel that you do things differently. You do things differently in your business. You do things differently in your life. And a lot of the people that I work with often say that they, maybe feel like they're living a life that isn't exactly their own. And I would love for you to just kind of take us back to, like, has this always been the way for you, or was there a catalyst that really sort of set you on this path?
Yeah. So I think it's so interesting because I am like your classic firstborn type A rule follower, like a really good upholder. If other people tell me what to do, I can do it. Same. I'm really good at upholding my own, obligations with myself too, and commitments. So it's interesting to see that I've gone down the path of entrepreneurship and set up a pretty different lifestyle for myself. And I think what happened was when those like outside commitments or expectations started to clash with my own values and what I wanted my life to look like, that's when I started to show up and do things differently. So that happened really early for me. It happened in college when I got a journalism degree and I wanted to stay on the West Coast. And that's not really what you usually do with a journalism degree. Normally you move to the East Coast where all publishing exists and you work there and you live in New York City. And it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And so that was that first kind of like fork in the road where I had the opportunity to say, okay, I could do that, but that doesn't feel aligned for me. And so what else could I do? And that's where I decided I was going to try doing the freelance writing thing, and eventually built that business up. And then when that didn't feel aligned anymore, then that's when I moved on to coaching.
Yeah. So I think that's amazing that you felt that and chose alignment like so early in your life. Like, was that something that was modeled for you?
I don't know that it was, so much modeled for me. It was just like I had this really strong sense. There's a few reasons I wanted to stay on the West Coast. And one was lifestyle. Like I really felt like this was my home and this is where I thrived the best. I was also in a partnership that I wanted to stay in. I didn't see that working very well coast to coast. And I also have my whole family here. And so for me, it was just it was driven by, these are the environments that I value and these are the people that I value. And I believe that it's going to work best if I stay here.
Yeah. So paint a picture of what you are doing today and how you support other people, doing this in their own life and their own business.
Yeah. So today I am a business coach. I actually feel like the word mentor is probably a little bit more appropriate for the work that I do. But coach is what most people would call it. And I work with people to help them simplify and streamline their business so that they can build something that's better than big. And for me, something that's better than big is not necessarily a business that's anti-growth, but it's about how you get there and how you're achieving your goals. And so I help them show up differently and learn how to do less better and learn how to, simplify their business so that they can make space for what's most important while also hitting their goals in business.
That's just like music to my ears. It's like, I think, for me, I had to do a lot of things wrong, I think, to sort of figure out this path of doing differently. Like it took a lot of mistakes and a lot of taking way too much on and filling my plate with way too many things, and really a sense of, or a lack of inner peace on the inside and emptiness for me to realize like, I've got to do something differently. And now it is, I've discovered like, there's such a more fulfilling way of being in life and moving through life and making decisions in life and all of that. But it took a lot of removing things in my life in order to do that. So I'm curious, did you have to do that in your own life? And what do you see come up for the people that you work with?
I absolutely had to do it. I think it came up a lot in terms of like what life needed to look like this is what your home needs to look like. This is what your family needs to look like. And this is how busy you should be in order to be, a valid, worthy person. So that came up on the personal side. And then when I launched my coaching practice, especially, that's when I started to, have a lot of noise, a lot of people telling me this is what it should look like. This is how much you should hustle. This is how hard you should work. This is how many things you should be busy with in your business. And I definitely, like you're saying, I definitely went down that path and was kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and doing too much. And it wasn't working. And I think it wasn't working, number one, because it's hard to make many things work well, but also because it wasn't out of alignment with how I like to operate, which is really with that, theme of simplicity. And so I definitely had to spend at least a year, if not more, as I launched my coaching practice, figuring all that out, kind of seeing this isn't for me. And if this isn't for me, what else is out there?
Yeah. That doing more and sort of everybody else out there looking like they know what they're doing. And I went down so many roads thinking I've got to do it this way, or you've got to do it this way, and trying that on and coming back to like something just wasn't in alignment or right inside, and learning to trust that and follow that. And has been, I think, one of maybe the most challenging, but also the most rewarding things in my life. So what is that sort of inner alignment for you, and how do you maintain that in your life? Like, how do you keep that strong? Because you occur to me as somebody who has a very strong internal compass. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think, but I'm also someone who's very easily influenced by, other people's opinions and what they're seeing and saying and, doing. And so for me, a lot of the times I need to sit with options, like I might see, in personal life, I'm a parent. So like I might see people signing their kids up for lots of stuff. And I might know that, in our family, that's kind of how we've decided not to do things. We've decided to do less so we can enjoy more. And that's not necessarily how everybody in our social circles operating. So sometimes it's very easy to like kind of jump into that way of doing and being. When I take a second to really consider the options, that's when I can check in with the alignment and see like, is this something we want to commit to or not? And same in business. Like there's so many options out there of, new opportunities and new goals. And if I just kind of let myself get pulled into it and without thinking it through and figuring out if it fits, that's when the overwhelm hits. That's when I'm out of alignment. When I take the time to pause and ask myself, will this serve me? Is this something I actually want to do? Then I make choices from that place of like real discernment.
I love that. It's the pause button is so
Yes.
vital to remember that we actually have that, because we can just get swept away by things or feeling like, it has to look like somebody else is doing it. And just that simple, like moment of pause, or even, a lot of times with my clients, I'll say, just give yourself a little bit of space to say, you know what, let me get back to you before I commit to something or say yes to something. And that pause is so packed full of, opportunity to do differently in your life in a way that is more aligned. So I love that. What do you see like as the greatest challenges to creating this in people's lives? Like, what do you see come up again and again with the people you work with?
I think it's probably two things. One is that ambition. And I know that your audience is a very ambitious bunch too. And so, and I'm a very ambitious person too. And so I think that like for myself and my clients, I see that kind of getting in the way sometimes. And what I want to help them with is to help them see that they can have ambition, but it doesn't need to be like a hustle kind of ambition, right? Like they can have ambition and have goals and have things that they want to improve and work on, but we don't need to rush it. And that's a very different way of approaching it than ambition with hustle attached. So that's one thing. And then I think the other thing that comes up a lot is the comparison. And it's very easy to look at what everybody else is doing and feel like you need to copy and do the same to get those results or to get the results that you want. And I'm always asking the question, like you're saying, like, let's pause a little bit and let's see if you really need to do those things or if there's something you need to do differently to make it work for you.
Yeah. What do you feel like was the biggest obstacle for you in creating the life you've created for yourself? Because you have a business a thriving business that also allows and provides for a pretty spacious lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's been your biggest challenge go ahead.
Oh, I think it's the comparison thing for me, especially, when I was a writer, it was very easy to compare and you could see all the other writers' bylines and see where they were writing for and like wondering if you could do that. And I had lots of ambitious goals there and a lot of comparison creeping in, but it really hit with the coaching practice. I went to get my coaching certification and we were told that this is the way it looks and this is what you should be doing. And I saw all these people around me, like basically following that blueprint for success. And it was very easy to kind of get into comparison mode and think that that's the thing that I needed to do then. But I realized like that the business that they were building, the style of business that they were building and the lifestyle it would create was not what I wanted in the least. And so that's where I really had to stop comparing and start asking what I really wanted.
And so tell us a little bit about like this. I sense that there's like a bigger why behind all of this. And you've touched on it a little bit, but like, what is your big why behind all that you do and the lifestyle you've created for yourself?
So it's really to help people live rich, fulfilling lives. I'm a business coach, so that's not necessarily, maybe a life coach would be more apt to say that, but I love helping people do that through their business. And I see their business as the vehicle to help them create that thing, to help them create the finances to do the things they want to do, to help them create the time and freedom and flexibility to do the things that they want to do. And that's been my why all along too. Like when I made that decision to go out on my own as a freelance writer, right out of college, my why was to create my rich, fulfilling life, which was living on the West Coast and being with the people I loved. And when I started my coaching practice, my why was rich, fulfilling life as a mother and, a partner and a woman with many diverse hobbies. And I wanted to figure out a way to make all that possible. And for me, like my rich, fulfilling life does not involve jet setting around the world or lots of luxury. It involves really simple things like time with my kids after school and, when school's in session, being able to go into their classrooms. And it involves lots of reading and walks and runs. And those are the things that I need. And so what I've started to do is look at how does business make that possible?
You said, your business is a vehicle for your lifestyle. And I think that's like, I don't think we hear that all that often, and what we actually see is a lot of businesses derailing people from the lifestyle that they want to create. And so what are some simple ways that you teach that allow people to make that shift in mindset first, that your business could actually be a vehicle to create a lifestyle? What are some simple shifts that you teach or that apply in your own life?
Goodness, I feel like there's so many ways I could answer this question, but I think one of the first things is to start looking at Yeah. Like to start looking at like life first approach, right? Like a lot of times, especially if you came from corporate America or it was modeled for you, we have this idea that we work and then we fit life into the fringes. And if you want your business to become the vehicle for the life that you want, you've got to start looking at what do I want my life to look like? And then how do I fit my business into that? And that's really helpful because when you start looking at that, then you see how many hours you have to work and you can start evaluating important decisions like what does marketing need to look like if you're going to fit business into those hours? And what do your services need to look like? And what business model is right for you if that's what you want your business to look like and that's what you want to make possible in your life? So for me, for example, like I knew I didn't want to work full time. I knew I wanted to work like 25, 30 hours a week and even less when my girls were really young. And so a business that had and required lots of complicated marketing did not make sense for me. And a business that had like lots of, big team member and lots of things going on in it didn't make sense. But a business that was one-to-one coaching and working with a handful of clients at a time and doing a few things to market it, that made so much sense because that was doable in the container that I had created.
Yeah. You and I worked together. I worked with you and you helped me simplify some things in my business. And I loved your approach around that, because you do you back up to the more important questions or the bigger questions of, what's your bigger why and what's really important over here in your life and how can we design your business in a way that supports that? And I think it's so important to back up and ask those questions. And I was just reminded of another question that I see you post a lot. And you can correct me if this isn't quite right, but it's something like, what would I do if I made this easier? And I think for me, that's like, I take that question with me all the time after seeing you post it, because I'm somebody who tends to overcomplicate things or make them harder than they need to be, or work harder than I need to actually work when I could work less and actually elevate the quality of not only of the work, but of my life. And I love that question. And how do you use that in your life and with your clients?
Yeah. I mean, so that question was born from my own tendency to overcomplicate things. I've just learned this term recently, maximizer. Like I'm someone who wants to find the very best solution. And so I like to research things and I will easily overcomplicate the most basic task. And so that question, and the way I usually phrase it to myself is like, what's simple and easy here? That helps me see a path forward pretty quickly, in any situation, life or business. Whether I take it right away is dependent on where my head's at, but it does help me like cut through the noise and find a way to move forward. And so I ask my clients that a lot because I think, it helps us if you're kind of my personality type, the maximizer, the researcher, the person who overcomplicates things. And it also helps you if you're someone who just like lives in indecision a lot.
Lives in a decision or lives in indecision?
Lives in indecision a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. Like on the fence, right? It's exhausting. Yeah. I can totally relate to that. Yeah. One of the ways that I get around that is because I used to live in the land of I don't know a lot. And I think it was a way I would could stay sort of safe. But a back door to that was I would start to ask myself, like, if I did know, what would it be? If I did know, what would it be? And I'd start to listen. And when I listened, there was something like wisdom that came from a much different place. And I always did know, but that armor, that protection that I'd used for so long really prevented me from so much. And so, yeah, I know that.
I love that question. That's one of the I hate to call it even a hack, but one of the great questions I learned in coaching school. And I think our brains, it works so well because our brains are primed to answer questions, right? And so if you're like, I don't know. But if you ask your brain a simple question, you usually do get an answer, even though you think you don't know. It's so fascinating to watch.
It's so true. That question really was game changing for me. To start to trust myself and have confidence and feel like I did have my own answers. So one of the things you and I, there's a lot of things a lot of things you write about. Like we I think I teach a lot of the same things in the work I do. And one of the words, and I think that's when I reached out to you, was like, you'd written something about simple shifts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, simple shifts. Like, I love that idea, because I think when we think about changing our life or changing our business, we think it's like these big, massive changes or big swooping changes, and it can feel overwhelming. And what I like to bring to the work I do is really just these simple, small shifts in the moments of your life that over time ripple to those bigger, larger changes that we desire. And so speak a little bit how that applies in what you do and what simple shifts means for you.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love this topic. And I think we connected about it because I was doing a series for my podcast, Better Than Big. Like we were doing a series on people who had made one simple shift in different areas of their business and the ripple effect that it created.
Yes.
You know, simple shifts with their services, simple shifts with their marketing. And it was so fun to dig in with people. You know, I got interested in this. I first heard about it when I was a freelance food writer, and I was writing about food and nutrition, and people were talking about these simple shifts. And then it came back up again when I started seeing my clients have these massive to-do lists and tell me they were living in overwhelm, and they were like, I've got to fix everything in my business. And I started to notice that they couldn't take action from that place. Like it was just too much. And like you're saying, they thought they needed to do this big overhaul or this massive change, and they just felt so much resistance that they couldn't do it. But when I introduced something really small and simple and said, well, what if we just do this little tiny tweak and see what happens after that and treat that as an experiment and see if it gets you where you want to go, then I started to see them taking action and getting, creating change. So it can be really, really small. It can be a mindset shift that they're making. Like maybe a client is someone who's always been a solopreneur, and they think that in order to have support in their business, they're going to need to hire this huge team. So the first small shift we might make is helping them become somebody who is willing to receive help. Like that might be the first thing that we need to work on. Second thing is we might get them to outsource one or two things for just a project-based something, and just see how that works for them so they can start seeing what it looks like to have support. Like again, it doesn't need to go from I have no support to I have a team that's helping me in all the things. It can just be one small shift, and that creates more time and space for them.
So good. So I love this idea of, kind of designing your day and being really intentional about how you create your days. And I think for so long in my life, I sort of lived at the mercy of what was happening and felt really powerless around that. And that's something that I very intentionally do now. And I believe that you do too. And how do you design, and I think this will be really interesting for the listeners, is how do you go about designing your day in a way that honors all these things that you're up to?
So I think there's the strategic part of it, and there's the mindset part of it. So the strategic part is I take a schedule and I ask myself, like, what are my main priorities? And there's usually, for me, there's usually 5 or so, and they're pretty obvious ones, like my health, my business, my family, my partner, and my community. And I will look at my schedule and I'll ask, like, where are these things fitting? And I think it's really fun. I'm sure not everyone does, but I think it's fun to look at it as this puzzle, and how are we going to make space for these things? And what does that look like? So that's like the strategic way, is looking at the schedule, figuring out the priorities, and putting the puzzle together. And I like to figure out life priorities first, like I was saying before, and then fit the business in next. So that's the first thing. But the second thing that I started to realize is that's not really enough. Like schedules and productivity tools and time hacks, great. Like they can be useful. But if you really want to create true time freedom and abundance, you also have to look at the ways you're operating in your business and look at the ways that you're thinking about work. And so for me and a lot of my clients, I started to realize that in addition to having a great schedule and great tools, we also started to look at, the beliefs that they had and the beliefs that I had too in business, that like the belief that more is better. Like it's very hard to enjoy spaciousness in your schedule if you have this deep-seated belief that more is better, because you're always going to fill all your pockets of time with more stuff. Or if you are, a perfectionist, it's really hard to get your work done in less time if you're constantly reinventing the wheel and perfecting. So that's where, the mindset shift to thinking about like, it would be okay for me to do B-level work so that I could enjoy more time and space. So both of those things are things that I've worked on over the years. Again, the tactical scheduling type stuff, and then the mindset shifts. And those things together are really what I think have allowed me to not just create the space, but enjoy it too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could do a whole nother conversation on time and time freedom. And I, I've created a lot of work around time because for the same reason that I saw it showing up so often in my own life and life of my clients, where time is this excuse and barrier to everything that we truly want. And that it really does start, like you're saying, with the mindset piece and this relationship that we've created, whether we realize it or not, with time. And this, usually it's a very tensious, I don't know if that's a word, but there's a lot of tension in the relationship that we have with time. And it's shifting, really changing that relationship with time, that time is on your side and you can work with time, and that there is enough time, and like shifting all of that mindset has made such a huge difference in my life to create calm and space. And I've built a lot of evidence now that that is true. And it's like, time is this, you can have this partnership with time that benefits every pocket of your life. And so, gosh, I would love to geek out on that with you sometime, because I think you have a course around that, don't you? Around time?
Yeah, I just launched it. It's called Do Less, Live More. And the idea, I mean, it's really just what I just summed up in the last thing we were talking about, but it's really that there are these tools that you can use, but if you don't also do the inner work, it's very hard to create space and enjoy it. And so in that, it's a private podcast feed. So it's an audio course, and there's 15 different lessons to help people start to look at the beliefs that they have and the ways they're operating in their business and life that's really robbing them of time. And if they even just do one of the things in that course, I know that they will have like 30 minutes more a week. If they do all of them, like abundance of time is possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's, a lot of times with time, like we think we need to do more, or have better strategies, or get better, get more efficient. And what I found is actually it's quite opposite. It's really finding those places to eliminate and shed thinking and behaviors that literally, like you said, are just robbing your precious time and energy, and harness that for things that are far more aligned in your life. So, you have a podcast that I adore, and I think people that are listening need to hear about your podcast. So share a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. And it's actually how we met, right? In a podcast group
Yes.
where we were both coming up with ideas for our podcast and really being challenged to create something really meaningful. So my podcast is called Better Than Big, and it was born from this idea of the kind of business that I help my clients create, this business that is simple and streamlined and aligned and very life-giving. And during that course that we were taking, the host said, it sounds like you help people build businesses that are better than big. And I went, oh my goodness, like that's it.
That moment.
Like, thank you so much. So what I do on the podcast is I think there's a lot of stories out there about the unicorns and about the people who have overnight success. What I really do on my podcast is talk about the people who are running those businesses that provide them, that are the vehicle for the lifestyle they want and that are very simple. And I feel like there's not a lot of platforms for those people's stories. And so I interview a lot of fun guests about the different things that they're doing in their business to create the Better Than Big business. And it's been incredibly fun and so educational and eye-opening too.
So good. So if you're curious and resonating with what Ashley's saying and kind of who she is in her life, I totally recommend you checking it out, because it's one of my favorite podcasts.
Yeah. And if you also want to like expand, right? Like if you want to have people around you who are building businesses that do serve their lives, like I said, there's not as much chatter in the online space on that. So if you want to surround yourself with people who can expand your vision of what's possible, any one of my, 50 guests at this point can show you.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're wanting that in your life, I know for me, like I had to start listening and surrounding myself with people and resources that were doing it. So you can start to actually believe it in your own mind that it's possible, because a lot of times there's so much noise and programming that has you sort of feel like that's a fantasy. And so, yeah, I totally agree. So what are you excited about today in your business or in your life? Like what's got you lit up?
I think definitely the new course, Do Less, Live More. And like that's got me so excited to bring the inner work to a whole new group of people. And that level of work that I'm doing with my clients also has me really excited. Like, it's very exciting for me now when a client says the time hacks, the productivity tools, they are not working for me, and I want to create a more spacious business. Then I can say, okay, let's look at what's going on in your head. Like, let's look at these other layers. And it's been so much fun and so fulfilling to see those making a difference for my clients.
I love that. Is there any particular story that comes to mind that just sort of encapsulates why you do what you do? Like a moment with a client or...
Yeah, there's dozens, but I'm working with this really great client right now who is a pretty young mom. You know, she's got a 19-month-old and she's running her business and she's trying to make it all work. And seeing her put boundaries in place for the business that she wants to run and, you know, do things like raise her prices and, you know, have actual great boundaries with clients and like do the things that she needs to do to create the business that serves her life and allows her time with her daughter and time with her partner and time outside. That for me is like everything. I know a lot of other, you know, people in my industry get really excited when their clients make more money. And I think that that's, you know, very exciting. And I want that for my clients too. But what I want most for them is the time freedom and the space to give back to what matters most to them. So seeing her post pictures with her daughter and knowing that she's getting that time with her daughter and getting time to do things outside means everything to me.
I so get that. Don't you find that, like, what I'm amazed at over and over and over again over the years of doing this work is that we and people are so much closer to what they want than they realize, you know, and it truly is like just these simple shifts. And then like this whole new world of opportunity opens up and they never realized how close it was.
Yes, 100%. Like, so with the gal I was just talking about, like she had beautiful services when she came in, but she had one too many. So getting rid of one of them opened up a bunch of opportunities for her. She was overcomplicating her marketing just a little bit. So like making a couple of changes worked for her. And then like the mindset stuff, like she was so close to being able to set boundaries and let go of perfectionism and do the things that would create the really business and lifestyle that she wanted. She just needed a little bit of permission to do it. And like, she was so, so close. Like I could see it the first time we talked. I'm like, 6 months or so, and we'll get you where you want to be.
That permission piece is so important. You know, I think as a coach, sometimes that is a role that we get to play and giving our clients permission or showing them that they can give themselves permission. And just how liberating that is for people. I mean, I know I've experienced that, but like to watch your clients actually experience that liberation is one of my favorite moments.
Me too.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, I would just love for you to answer, what is doing differently? And I think you've explained it, but what does doing differently mean to you?
I think, I love this question because it really gave me pause. I really had to think about it. I know it's something you ask all your guests, so kind of thinking about it beforehand. And I think for me, doing differently is taking input from what's going on outside, like having mentors, having people who can expand your view of what's possible, but then making sure that you're checking in with yourself and your intuition and asking what's in alignment for you and creating your plan from that place. Whether it's plan for business, plan for life, plan for the day, like any of those things. Like take the outside inputs for sure, but really stay the course with what you know is right for you.
Yeah, I love that. So anything else before we close that is just burning inside for you to share, or something on your heart, or just something we didn't get to touch on that you hoped that we would?
Yeah, I think, one thing I want to say is that it's easy to hear about other people who you are doing differently, or me who's got this spacious business or spacious life because of how I've designed my business. And I think sometimes we discount that it's possible for us. We'll say it's nice for those people, but that's not possible for me because of circumstances or the way I think or just the way it is, the way things have to be or the way I do things. And I would really encourage people to kind of play with those thoughts and give themselves, again, here's the permission piece, right? Like give themselves permission to ask if it's possible for them and invite them to explore it a little bit so that there's not this, everyone else can have what I want, like to actually give yourself permission to explore what it would look like for you to have it too.
Yeah, so good. And I know you made me think about like in times in my life where I knew something had to shift or change. And I knew in my heart, like maybe it was possible, or maybe I just knew that I wanted something different, but I had no clue about the how. But I allowed that desire in my heart to kind of lead the way and sort of take the forefront and put a stake in the ground to say, I'm going to create something different. I'm going to move in this direction. And I know once I did that, and anytime I do that now, the how shows up, the pieces show up, the resources show up. And so yes, beautiful. So Ashley, I just want to thank you so much for having this conversation and for being somebody who is out in the world doing the work you do and showing people that there is a different way possible and that it's closer than we think. And so thanks so much for joining me today and diving in. And gosh, we could have you come back for sure and dive in. I think we could have a whole bunch of other conversations.
Oh, I'm sure. Thank you so much for asking such great questions and holding the space for this conversation.
Hey everyone, I want to make sure you know how to check out Ashley's time course and other great work. You can find her and everything that she does at ashleygartland.com/do less, live more for her time course. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.